Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jackie Brenner, a pre-med student who has enjoyed meeting other STEM students from around the world through my TikTok and Discord STEM Potential. I created these STEM Potential webinars in order to combat the lack of mentorship and representation that I noticed in the STEM fields. We are an online Discord that provides a network for all students to share their unique perspectives from diverse backgrounds and create strong connections. Discord members can act as mentors and mentees as they progress along the stages of their education while also finding friends with common interests. I would like to give a shout out to all the members of STEM Potential team for working together to make this possible. And Ashini, if you can turn on your camera, a special thanks to Ashini, who's the Vice President of STEM Potential, who's also moderating the session right after this with medical students. None of this would be possible without her, so huge kudos to her and being my rock. Thank you, Ashini. I am proud and humbled to have assembled a group of incredibly successful STEM professionals. This session will be highlighting 4 students who have unique perspectives in terms of physics, math, and technology. Now, I want to just start us off by allowing each panelist to give, a brief introduction. Maybe Lauren, you can start us off.
So hello, my name is Lauren Bouchereau. I am the founder and executive director for a small nonprofit known as Beyond Numbers Interactive Education. We make games out of complex math and physics. Right now we're in electromagnetics, so it's a lot of the Maxwell equations. It's a lot of fun. My background right now, I am getting my MBA as well as MS in mathematics at Claremont Graduate University. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be a part of this amazing webinar. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. You're gonna have to talk about how you became an author this year, maybe too, showing you don't have to be just, in science, right?
True. I also have written multiple textbooks. I tend to forget to add this, as well as a few novels now. So that's added.
And I just want to add on to that saying Lauren has been, crucial to and fundamental to the Discord. She's on there all the time, helping students all the time. So thank you. Karen, maybe you can go next.
Hi, my name is Karen Macias Cárdenas. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I am a master's student at Queen's University in Canada. I study astroparticle physics. Specifically, I study dark matter interactions with neutrinos. And although studying in Canada, I am from Mexico. I was born and raised there and did my undergrad there. And I am really happy to be there with all of you.
Thank you. Florian, want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Florian. I grew up in Germany originally, but I'm now doing my master's in Burnaby, Canada at Simon Fraser University. And I'm doing physics for my master's, specifically condensed matter theory. And there I study strongly interacting particle systems, from a theoretical viewpoint.
Awesome, thank you. And last but not least, Emily, who also was basically the person who inspired us to really continue these webinars. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I'm Emily. I did my undergrad at Carnegie Mellon in computer science and robotics, graduated in 2019. And since then, I've been working full-time at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I've been working as a software engineer. I worked on the EDL live telemetry visualization that was used to show the world Mars 2020 landing on Mars on February 18th. And I'm also a rover planner writing sequences for Curiosity to execute up on Mars. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for those amazing introductions. We will now move into the first part of the Q&A. I just want to remind everyone, please submit your questions through the chat function at any time for everyone to view. So first question to get us started, I wanted to know, how did you choose your research interest or, fields you went into, graduate program, etc.? Maybe Emily can get us started.
How did I choose? I guess honestly, I've just always loved space. I mean, at some point when I was a kid, like, and I was tossing around ideas of what I wanted to be, I wanted to be an astronomer. But like, I don't know. I think in high school, I figured out that computer science was like really what I wanted to study. I did robotics in high school, and I took computer science and the computer science class, and always have like tinkered with computers and stuff. So then I went to college and I interned at JPL after my freshman year. And that kind of, I mean, I already knew I wanted to work there, but that kind of solidified for me, like, yes, I'm definitely going to come here after graduation. And so, yeah, here I am. It's kind of amazing. It's basically my dream job that I'm doing right now. So, yeah.
That's amazing. We're definitely gonna have to talk more about how you got there in terms of mentorship as well. Maybe Lauren, you can go next.
Oh, hello. It's me, Lauren. Going to just explain. So my field, mathematics, is actually very difficult at times. I've found that the reason, I think how I found my field was mainly hubris. I think it was hubris and having a lot of people say that, I couldn't do it. And I've found a lot of other people in math have a similar kind of feeling, like, or they've had similar experiences where people along the way said, no, you can't do this, or maybe this is too hard, or presenting kind of feats that just kind of push you as an individual. So for me, there was a lot of hubris getting into geometry and topology because it's quite different than what I thought it would be. That being said, it gives me a deep appreciation for physics. I like to believe that physics actually is a driving force for math, like that they dream of, the spaces and where to guide us mathematically. So that's kind of my segue into physics for my fellow panelists.
Well, thank you for that. Maybe Karen, go next.
Yeah, well, I think it was a series of events that led me to physics eventually. I didn't really know what I was going to do, like, from an early age. I just remember when I was in middle school, I think it's what you call here, like, 7th grade. That's the first time that I was supposed to have my physics class, like my first ever physics class. But my teacher broke her leg and couldn't give classes for like a long time. So I was like, well, I paid for the school because I went to like a private school and I had a scholarship, but even though I had a scholarship, it was like a small percentage I had to pay. It was like, well, my mom paid for all these books, like they cost money, so I better like read them, even though I'm not having like physics classes. So I started kind of like trying to understand physics on my own, which obviously didn't go well as the first time I approached physics. And I think it challenged me. It was the first time that I felt challenged by something that I didn't understand, and I wanted to know more because of it. And then, growing up in Mexico, also, like, you don't really know that being a scientist is a career option. So, just starting to kind of understand for myself that there's actually people outside who do this, like, for a living, and you can get money out of it. And I was like, well, maybe not much, but something to live according. So it was like, that's how I tried to approach it. And then when I was in high school, a lot of my teachers, so that I like physics, but I also like chemistry quite a lot. So they told me like to go to like this kind of like chemistry Olympics and stuff like that. So I feel like the culmination of a lot of like mentors and teachers during my high school, and maybe that unfortunate event for my former physics teacher in middle school led me to go into physics eventually.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And last but not least, Florian.
Yeah, so I knew pretty early on that I wanted to go into sciences and specifically physics because I really liked how it explained how the world and the universe works, and that was really fascinating to me. But I didn't expect to end up in the field that I am now at all. I think most people, when they think of physics, they think of stars and astronomy, or maybe the the particle colliders at CERN. And I thought that's what I want to do eventually. But then during my undergrad, taking all these different courses in astrophysics and particle physics, I realized that I really did not enjoy the math that goes into those subfields. And it was more by accident that I found my love for statistical physics and by proxy condensed matter physics, which was a course that I was dreading the most because it sounded really boring. But it turned out to be my favorite course. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am now.
And along the lines of where you ended up, I was wondering, Florian and also Karen, if you guys can speak to, coming from a different country and how that impacted your study and the evolution of that.
Sure. So after I graduated high school in Germany in 2012, and I wanted to do a year abroad before I started university. So I decided to come to Canada on like a working holiday visa. So I could travel through Canada, work here and there. And during that time, I lived in Vancouver for 6 months and I fell in love with the city. I just really like how open and accepting people are here. And also the weather is very nice. So I knew that I wanted to live here eventually. I didn't think it was going to be for university already, but then once I was back in Germany after my 1 year here, I discussed with my parents if it would be possible for me to do my undergrad here. And after a few weeks of discussions, I ended up applying and got in. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Karen, you'd like to?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of factors, I think, for choosing my current graduate program. First of all, I just wanted to experience like a more international community with regards to science because I knew that's how science in general works, right? We have like a tons of international collaboration, even in physics, like a lot of the big discoveries get done by collaborations and people working together, right? And I had like a little bit of taste of it already because I did an internship at the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen the year before I went here. So I knew that was something like important, and it really broadened like my perspective of science in an international level. And also, I was looking into going to graduate programs in Mexico, but in Mexico, you want to go to grad school, there's basically, at least in my field, which is like astroparticle physics, there's like 3 main cities, which is Mexico City, Guanajuato, and Puebla. And all those 3 cities, I just didn't feel safe being there as a queer person, and it's just like a non-male in those cities. So it was like a choice between, well, do I stay in Mexico or do I look for opportunities outside? And it ended up being looking for opportunities outside because I just didn't feel safe in those spaces, like staying like that. But if the things were different, maybe I would have stayed in Mexico. And I do think there is a huge issue, and we actually have a term in Mexico with it, which is fuga de cerebros, and it means the brains that go out of Mexico, because there's a huge part of the scientific and academic population that go science in other countries and don't stay in Mexico. So those are definitely like probably the 2 biggest factors that play into choosing the program that I am and that is not in Mexico.
Thank you. And in terms of, looking to outside sources and collaboration, I wanted to address the first question in the chat. It says, do you guys ever wish you went into engineering? I'm going into undergrad this fall and I want to do physics, but I hear it's hard to stay in the field with things like dark matter and particle physics, but still make money. Thoughts? I was hoping, Karen, you can start us off again, and then maybe we can move into what are the best parts in your work for everyone to discuss, since you're all in such different fields.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they say dark matter, so how specific? That's what I work on. But yes, definitely. So I never wanted to go into engineering because those are 2 very different fields. Physics, I feel like the way that I wanted to do physics is because it gives me the opportunity to address like the big questions that I had about the universe, like how the things form, how they evolve, like how they started, you know, which can get like very on the frontier of cosmology / philosophy, right? A little bit. But I like that. I like to do that. So in order for me to do that, engineering was not the way to go. It's just a different set of skills that you have for different things that you want to do. Like for theoretical physics, you have to learn physics from the basis. And yeah, there's definitely the thing about money. That's something that I think goes very well also with the last question that we addressed. So into looking for graduate programs, in a lot of countries, for masters, there, for example, in Europe, masters are usually not paid. So that was one of the reasons I couldn't go to Europe. I got accepted into universities, but I didn't have money to go into them. And then in Canada, masters are paid. So that was like a huge advantage, right, for me to go into the program. And it's true that it's not the biggest paid. And I do think that if that's something that you are worried about, you should like see it in a new light, because everyone has like different necessities and the way of life that they want to live and in the kind of things that they need to do, right? But I think definitely the academic job market is very slim. Not a lot of people who go into academia end up being professors or researchers. So that's definitely something that you need to think about. And I will also say that even though the academic path is there, it's not the only one. There's a lot of people that go into industry and are very happy, and it's very fulfilling, and it's the thing that they want to do. So definitely like look at it with like a broader perspective than just like this linear thing that is like, oh, you get to do a master's, PhD, and then you are a postdoc and a professor, which a lot of people want to do. I want to do that, but you know, it's not the only option.
Maybe I can just add on to that. For me personally, I knew that as a physicist, especially in theory, you're not going to make as much money as I probably could in other fields. Specifically in engineering, you can make a lot more money. But for me, that was more secondary. I really liked doing physics, and I really liked learning about how things worked on a fundamental level. And that was more important to me. So I would say if it's just about the job and the money part, then I think engineering is probably a better option. But on the other hand, with a physics degree, you do have a lot of doors that open for you, because a lot of jobs can be done by people with physics degrees, and physicists are very highly valued because you learn how to problem solve in the degree, and that is applicable to many fields, from actual lab technicians in physics to data scientists to engineering as well.
I will quickly add that I have a coworker and friend at work who is who did their undergrad in physics and is also now a software developer and rover planner. So you can definitely do a lot with a physics degree.
I was just going to say, in math, there's a lot of things that you could do. I'm definitely on that same route that Karen and Florian are explaining, because I do want to teach. That is something that I want to do eventually. It takes a long time to get your PhD. I mean, especially in mathematics, you have to, prove a theory. Like, you have to create your own equation. That's the final. That's your final, accomplishment into getting your PhD. But for me, I knew that journey was going to be a long journey, and I wanted to teach abstractly, which is why I created my nonprofit and why I work with people outside of my field to create educational games, because I love teaching. I love learning. I love physics. I love math. And it's a great way of expanding what you're doing. So even if you're interested in physics and you're wondering, like, how do I market this? This is like the business side, like my MBA coming through. There's always a way to market yourself. If you don't have that job that's out there that's paying you what you want, you could also try and create it. That's also a possibility. Then there are others, like Emily, I'm like a huge fan, who are working like a dream job, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. Like, I'm this is my segue to you, because it's different for every person, and every job is different for everyone. My job, my nonprofit, is also a dream job because it's my creation, but it's up to the individual.
And going back to Emily as well, if you can address how you knew you wanted to study, I think it was computer science and robotics, and picking
Yeah.
majors.
Oh yeah, I see there's also a question in the chat. Yeah, I think, I don't know, I went to a pretty good school for elementary and middle school where I was kind of allowed to like explore things I wanted to do. And I spent a lot of time with my laptop early on, just like exploring and tinkering. And when I was at elementary school, I found this program called Alice, which is actually CMU's version of Scratch, if you know what that is. It's basically a tool that they use to teach high schoolers and middle schoolers coding skills. So I was messing around with this tool in like elementary school, and that was actually what originally made me want to go to CMU. And then, I mean, I went to high school and like did the whole college search, um, but yeah, I think I just had an affinity for technology, I guess. And then I went to college and realized that a CS degree is actually almost entirely math, and I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, and I knew that I wanted to work in, I really liked robotics. Those are always my favorite classes in college. It's like a real world application of all the stuff I was learning. And I really have loved space my whole life. And if you want to work in robotics in space, there is exactly one place that is the best in the world at both those things, and it is JPL. So yeah, I think it was really just knowing what I wanted to do and what I wanted to do with my life. Like my end goal is to get a robotics PhD someday, and hopefully I'm hoping I can do that like through working at JPL, and it's definitely possible. So yeah, I think it's just following what I really knew that I love to do and finding the place that fits that best and happens to exist. So
Awesome, thank you. And along what you said in terms of, researching what you're interested in from an early age, wanted to ask you all, how instrumental was your college classes versus independent study and researching? Maybe Lauren, you can start us off with this question because I know you've really explored, physics, math, and other fields. So what advice do you maybe have, and also bring your experiences with that?
So for my undergrad, I went to a liberal arts college, and my liberal arts college had a very strange setup where it was mandatory to take certain courses. It was almost like high school part 2. So I did have to take physics. I did have to take, English, and I had to take, history. I had to take all of these other courses. Histories, it's more like Greek history. It's hard to explain. But it's difficult when you're presented with so many options to kind of find your way through and say, like, this is what I want to do, like this is where I want to be. And it's okay to question and say, especially when you're going throughout the process, even though I'm even in my graduate program, there are times when I'm just thinking, maybe I should have gotten into mathematical physics. I have this like obsession. Don't tell like the other math people, but like keep it in. But like, because like everyone in math is very anti-physics, it's really funny actually. But I have like a secret love affair. I'm like, no, actually, I kind of love it. I love everything that's going on. And I love, thinking about how abstract spaces are impacting, the math that's underlying everything. Sorry, I can go on for like ever. But it's this moment, this thing that I knew, like the fact that I can talk about it, the fact that I care, that led me to get into mathematics, where I was like, I can talk about this and I love it. I genuinely do. And it's painful. I'm not saying it's not excruciating sitting there and getting problem sets after problem sets and then just like being alone and staring at my screen and trying to solve it. But, in the end, when you finish it, there's a sense of accomplishment. And I think that accomplishment helped guide me towards where I am.
And jumping in real quick, Lauren, I have another question in terms of what made you pursue an MBA as well. How did you know you wanted to do it?
I think it was just knowing exactly what that person had asked, when they had asked, oh, well, you know, you're not going to make a lot of money. Why not do engineering? Why not do something else? Why not go into a different field? And I thought, well, you know what? I can get that MBA and understand how to market myself, which is why, even though I'm in math, I've written books, I've written textbooks, I've written, you know, young adult stuff. I'm trying to figure out other ways to live in Los Angeles in a place where it's almost impossible to live, because I mean, the cost of living is so high. So for me, it's like, how do I sustain a lifestyle that I want to live? How can I do both? Do the thing I want to do and also like live. And that's how I've found a way to balance, which is to market myself. And that's why I'm getting my MBA.
Was amazing. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to move into discussing mentorship for a little bit and how that inspired your, field of study, or if it was more so the field of study and then the mentorship came later. Maybe Florian, you can start us off.
Sure. Like I mentioned before, I didn't think I was going to go into condensed matter. I thought I was going to do particle physics, astronomy. So early throughout my degree, I took those courses, and the undergraduate level at a lower level, like the first and second year course of those, were very cool. But then third and fourth year, I didn't have the best time there. So I found my current supervisor through my statistical physics course, who was teaching it when I was taking it. And after I finished that course, I went to talk to him because I knew that he was doing something related. And I asked him if I could write my thesis, my undergraduate thesis, with him, which ended up happening. And so through him, he really opened the door to all of this condensed matter theory to me. And then, yeah, through that undergraduate thesis, I also wanted to continue on for my master's. I originally wanted to go to Australia for it, but then last year happened and I couldn't really leave the country. So I ended up staying here, and I might do my PhD there. And I guess next year when I finish.
Thank you. I was wondering, Karen, maybe you can address how mentorship has played a role in your career as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I talk a little bit about this, like one of the first questions in which I think people, even from high school, teachers who really like saw the things that I like to do and guide me into doing things that I like, outside of my comfort zone, for example, like these chemistry Olympiads, right? So that was crucial, I think, for my formation as a scientist. And then also having people, during my undergrad who were amazing mentors. And one of them actually is this astronomer. Like in my city, there's the National Institute for Astronomy. Not in my university, but there's also an institute that literally like 500 meters from my university. So it's like right there. And when I was in high school, I had to do like an internship in a career that I wanted to do when I went to university. So like I just like knock on doors on the institute until someone answered, and this person answered, and he took me in and he taught me how to do this and that on astronomy. And even until this day, he continues to be my mentor and help me when I need stuff. And he wrote me recommendation letters for grad school and stuff like that. So there's definitely those kind of connections you need, and you need mentors. They're going to be there for you and care for you, not only as a professional but also as a person. So yeah, definitely a lot of people out there have helped me in my way. Also, very briefly, I went to my internship in Copenhagen because I won an award in Mexico called the John M. Bacall Award, and this is an award that is given to Mexican students that are studying like either tier or fourth year of physics. And this is by Enrico Ruiz, which is UCSC So he's from Mexico, but he's a professor at GCSE, and he created this award in order to give Mexican students the opportunities to do research abroad. Uh, so yeah, he's definitely also been one of the figures that I really, look up to. I think he's amazing. I think if I can do something like that one day, then I will be fulfilled.
Thank you. And in terms of mentorship, I also wanted to discuss burnout and how you stay motivated and what advice you have in terms of, recognizing that it's not always easy in research. There's going to be failure. There's going to be setbacks. Maybe Emily, you can start us off in terms of how that works out in JPL.
Sorry, in terms of like failures and setbacks?
Yeah, and staying motivated and how you deal with burnout.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because I had a particularly rough week at work this past week. But yeah, I don't know, staying motivated. For me, at least, it helps that I actually tend to work on multiple projects at the same time, which sounds difficult, but if I'm like getting particularly frustrated or burnt out or like can't solve a problem on one project, then I can just like drop that one for the half a day, work on one of my other projects that I have, and then I can go back and pick it up later. I think also JPL has a 980 work schedule where we have every other Friday off, but we work 9 hours a day. And so I take full advantage of those 3-day weekends often. Before COVID, I would always use them to like fly somewhere else for the weekend or travel and like vacation, go hiking, that sort of thing. So I think I really have a strong belief in work-life balance, and I like don't even check my work phone over the weekends. Like, I really like people struggle with that a lot now too in COVID because we're all working from home, and I mean, literally my day is like I sit at my desk all day, and then I press a button and I switch to my other computer for gaming, and then I sit at my desk all evening. So I think people find it hard to separate their lives from work in that sort of setup. And so I've tried very hard to like after when it's like 6 p.m. or whatever, like put down the laptop. And I know that's particularly hard in school. I know for sure, because in school it's basically 24/7, but I think it's always good to like set some time apart from yourself and not think about school for a while, if at all possible.
Thank you. And maybe Lauren, you can speak to this, especially in terms of running a nonprofit and doing a million things.
Yeah. So I don't usually get burnout, which I know is a really strange thing to say, but I was reflecting on this from our last webinar, because I didn't really explain. I think it's just because there are things that have happened in my life as anyone else, especially on this board, could speak to. When you face different kinds of adversity, where you're, I don't know, there's something, no sé cómo se dice en inglés, pero it's like you have tener ganas para hacer algo. Like there's something within you that, is like pushing you, and you can't really explain it, to fix something outside. I think that's what I'm trying to do with this nonprofit. And I think that's also what I'm trying to do with my writing. And with all the different small, like an inner drive or a calling that I can't really control, and I've always had it, especially like in undergrad when, it was difficult because I never came out when I was, an undergrad. I didn't come out until after I graduated, and it was, there was a lot of anger I think I had that's like residual that has propelled me. And so like I've just gone and gone and gone, and it just doesn't seem to stop because I see different problems throughout the world, and I'm like, I can try and do that. And I think this is where it's coming from from like different adversities and trying to fix that, and just seeing, you know, disparities. You know, it's hard when you're in a world and you want to make a difference, and then you're like, I'm just a drop in a pond, but you know, I'm trying to make a little wave every now and then.
Thank you. And being aware of the time, I think that's a perfect segue into part 2 of our Q&A discussion about LGBTQ and STEM and diversity. So my first question is, how has diversity in, you know, the field of STEM changed throughout your career? Maybe Karen, can begin on this one?
Yeah, well, you know, I don't have that long of a career, so I don't think I can speak on terms of things that I have seen change over the years, but I think I can speak in terms of my perspective as an international student in Canada. Because definitely, you know, it's really like maybe some of you, but not all of you. I personally am a lot on Twitter, and that's how I find like a scientific community there. And that was like a way of trying to find people like me, you know, like queer people who are in STEM and are doing this work, and kind of look for like role models, because that's not something that I could find in my own institution or even like in my own country in general, right? So, you know, when I move here in Canada and I see just from like this Western perspective of the first world country, especially Canada, the States, Europe, when there are more open kind of things, for example, like this panel, or there are like organizations that are dedicated to, you know, doing activism in terms of LGBTQ rights in STEM. And there are like campaigns which are marvelous, like 500 Queer Scientists, where you can put your profile, but you go into those kind of things and you click on what kind of people are there, and you always find people from the States, the Canada, and Europe, and you don't find people from Latin America, and you don't find people from Africa, and you don't find people from Asia, and there's, to me, this obvious clear divide between what kind of opportunities are there in research and what kind of opportunities are there in people who are LGBTQ and are in research in terms of this. So it's kind of like living in between those two worlds of, I'm very happy that there are changes that are happening in academia right now, but then academia very much feels like it's only these first world countries who are making a change, and they do not care what the other countries mean. To me, that's a perspective.
And it's truly inspiring seeing how you carved the path that you wanted in terms of what you wanted to study. So really just looking out, because I think it can be hard for international students to see that that opportunity does exist. And it can be hard for some students. Maybe Florian, you can go next, discussing diversity and how it's changed for you.
Yeah, so first of all, I think physics is still very much a white men dominated field. It has changed over the past 10, 20 years, maybe. And I think specifically at my university, I see in the graduate students that we have a lot of people that are international students that are people of color. We have a lot of women that study physics, and they all do really incredible work. There's one prof, Stephanie Simmons. She's like in the top of her field in quantum computing and gets all kinds of awards all the time. And it's really, really fascinating to see how that is currently changing. One other thing that I wanted to mention is the American Physical Society, which is just a big organization for physicists. They organize conferences and all kinds of things. They started it's called IDEA. It's the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Alliance, I believe. And that was about 2 years ago, and it was specifically started to promote more diversity and inclusion in the physics community. And they have done all kinds of surveys to see what kind of discrimination has been faced by different groups of people and how that can be improved. And a lot of universities have adapted that concept and formed their own groups to have a more local and direct impact on diversity in physics.
Awesome. And in terms of, that's the school aspect of it, maybe Emily, you can speak towards how diversity has changed within your workplace.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna go back a little further. I mean, it's like always been very clear that CS is like a very male-dominated field, and so, yeah, even like back in high school, my CS teacher was encouraging me to like apply for the NC WIT award, which if there's any high school like women or marginalized gender people in the attending today, you should apply for NC WIT because it really opened a lot of doors for me. But in any case, yeah. So I mean, even through college, I went to prestigious school, so they try really hard to have a good gender ratio. So my class, I think, was like 30. My class was kind of bad, and then it was 33% women, but overall, I think in the major it was like 40 or 45, or I think they're approaching 50 now. But even in my robotics classes, it was still like all men, which was kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know why nobody, it was mostly men who chose to major, like additional major or minor in robotics, but that's kind of how it was. And then I get to my job and it's still like, I don't know what JPL's diversity statistics are, but it's still like definitely a minority women overall. And then I was in the room on landing day, and it was actually like, I don't know. I don't know if it was half and half, but there were a lot of women around me, and that felt really nice. I mean, like, and it's not like I was in the main room that was like the main focus of all the cameras either. Like I was in a different like side room. We had to kind of spread out because of COVID, but like there are a lot of women in like very high leadership positions for EDL, and that feels really cool. I mean, not all of them are CS either. It was like all sorts of engineering, but it's really nice to see how the field is improving as I get older and as we like progress further into the future, because there's this whole reputation, and like I don't know if I've faced like direct sexism, but it's definitely been harmful to be in this sort of environment all the time. And I had like, luckily I have a very solid group of friends who we all like support each other. But yeah, but it does seem like things are getting better. So it makes me very excited. And it's exciting that my workplace is willing, like puts like women and also like non-binary people. There was one of the people in the room on landing day was also non-binary, and that was really exciting. So yeah, things are getting better and it's exciting.
It's awesome. And maybe Lauren, you can speak to how diversity is in mathematics.
Yeah, I mean, very much the same as in physics. Not very diverse. It's hard to find anyone who looks like me, and it's even harder to ask someone, so how do you identify, or like it's hard to approach those questions. So often I find myself asking roundabout questions, kind of sensing the waters, like yeah, have you been recently to Texas? How do you feel about, the vaccine? Like random questions to kind of like gauge, like, what do you think generally about LGBTQ plus? Are you comfortable around women and or people of color? What are your thoughts in general? Like, I don't know how to approach those subjects. And it's hard because it's like, even my mentor, who he's helped me through so many different issues. He was a white man, so I'm like, he is, not once, he's still alive. But I'm just saying, like, everyone around me doesn't reflect me, and it's hard, which is why I think I also established this nonprofit to kind of create a balance where I've sensed an imbalance. So on another side, in terms of like hiring practices, I had to really become aware, like, how do I create an inclusive atmosphere? How do I create an inclusive platform? I did a lot more research than I would have done if I wasn't in this community. Like, I found out that there's Q, which is a non-gendered voice, which I could actually put into my game to create a more inclusive atmosphere for my users. It's like little things like that that I wouldn't have thought of if I wouldn't have been a part of this community and if I didn't love the way that I loved.
Well, thank you for that answer. And I think that leads perfectly into the next one, which is, does being a member of the LGBTQ community affect your daily life, and how? Maybe Florian, you can start us off.
So nowadays, I don't think it affects my life very significantly, well, especially with COVID. I don't really leave the house much. But growing up in Germany, I'm from a very small town. So it's very difficult for me to see any kind of representation, or almost impossible, really. So once I moved here and I saw all these people being out and proud and just living their lives, I started to feel much more comfortable in my own skin, because people here really don't care all that much. Like in a good way. They're just like, you do you. So nowadays I don't have many thoughts about being gay on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to academia and my studies, I was definitely also trying to sense if my supervisor was going to be okay with who I am and all that. And I also only contacted younger professors, like 40-ish or younger, even though there were other people that I was very interested in working with, just because I expected them to be more conservative.
Thank you. I was hoping, Karen, you could address this question, especially with your international views as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we just have to care and worry about more things than, you know, a cishet person will have to worry, right? Just the environment where you live in. Like, I also like live in a fairly, you know, small city in Mexico, and it's also Mexico, right? So it's not like the most liberal country ever in the world. So even like last summer, before I was able to like come to Canada and start my graduate program, like gay marriage was not legalized in my state, and I was like in a lot of strikes and protests, you know, trying to fight for that. But I was supposed to be doing literature review, you know, for my grad program, and I often was like, you know, in meetings with who is now my advisor, like, sorry, I just couldn't do this because I was busy, you know, fighting with people. So yeah, it's definitely like affected like some things about my academic research in that sense, because, you know, like if things were super great and we didn't have to worry about that, we wouldn't be having this panel in the first place, right? And this takes time. Doing this kind of film also takes time, you know, out of things that I want to do. Maybe I wanted to be like on my couch eating chips, I don't know, or something like that. So there's definitely a lot of work to do, and just like my experiences as a queer person affect the research that I do because of the time that I have, and just because of the world we live in, and it's a stress over the shoulders, you know, trying to worry about, you know, people like you in the world that are not in the same good situation that I'm currently at. So it's definitely like a lot of empathy that goes around into trying to concentrate on your work and not being able to because you're thinking about all these other issues that are out there.
Absolutely. With so much going on today, I think it can be really difficult to compartmentalize everything that's going on. And to follow with that, you know, being aware of the time, I wanted to move into the final question and change it a bit and ask, what's your biggest piece of advice, but specifically for, you know, the field that you're in, for other students who aspire to be in your position in the next 5-10 years? And maybe if you can restate again, just what your major or what you're studying field is. Maybe Emily, you could start us off.
Yeah. Just to remind, I'm majored in computer science and robotics, and I'm now a software engineer. I think my biggest advice for software engineers is kind of like try to be your most authentic self. I feel like a lot of times in this industry, people try to be someone they're not, or they basically like will pursue a career that's like fully about the money with like, I mean, even if you need the money, then sure, but like there's like no plans to transition to like any sort of passion. And I think it's important to like stay grounded and like try to do what you love. And that's not always easy and it's not always possible, but like if you ever find yourself with that sort of opportunity, I would say take it because it's fully worth it. And I mean, I get paid a lot less than my peers working at a government, basically a government entity, sort of, kind of, it's complicated. But I definitely think it's worth it, at least for me at this time. And I wouldn't trade it for, I don't know, a higher paid job doing web dev for Google or whatever. So yeah, I think just stay grounded and focused on what you love.
You're living your dream, so that's all you can do. Lauren, maybe you go next.
So with math, I would say the one piece of advice I would give is be kind to yourself, because there are moments where you will fail. Whatever failure is to you, it will happen. There will be problem sets, there will be life, there will be something that happens in your life where all of a sudden, kind of like what Karen was saying and what I will say, like sometimes life intervenes and all of a sudden you're not able to meet a deadline or you aren't able to finish something. And maybe you don't do well on a test, or you know, there's something else that happens along the way and you may experience a kind of failure. I don't call it failure because it's not failure. It's a kind of failure that you will overcome at some point in your life. These are learning moments and building blocks to get to where you want to get to. And if you're in an MBA program, I would say you'll be fine. Do lots of projects, make lots of friends. Okay, the end.
Oh, thank you. Building blocks, you know, you've been able to accomplish so much. So it's truly inspiring seeing what you're doing. Have to read your book soon. Maybe Florian, if you could go next.
There's a lot that I think that I would, there's like multiple pieces of advice that I think I would give. First of all, go talk to profs. Like if you find they do something interesting, profs love talking about their research. So if you want to find out more, just either send them an email or knock on their office door and just go talk to them and see if you can get involved on a volunteer basis, or sometimes there's opportunities to get paid for research, even as an undergrad. I would definitely encourage that. But on a more, I guess, less academic level, make sure that you take care of yourself, specifically mental health wise. I have struggled with anxiety, depression for years, still dealing with it to this day. And I wish I would have started my journey in getting better earlier. I wish I would have reached out for help from friends or for mental health services earlier. I'm in a spot now where I'm okay. But yeah, I think it's very important to make sure that you're okay. It doesn't matter how long you take for your degree. Make sure that you don't hurt yourself in the process.
Thank you for bringing that up. I know I definitely wish we would have touched on mental health more, maybe in a different session, but truly inspiring seeing how you continue your work no matter what, and finding ways to, you know, find help, even if it's, you know, later on, but still recognizing that's there. So I think that's really important. And lastly, Karen.
Yeah, So just to reiterate, I'm an astroparticle physicist, and I think, the biggest piece of advice probably like be bold and be open-minded and also make connections within the field. I think that, a lot of people think that to go into science, you have to be like this most passionate person and you have to breathe and live physics and you have breakfast and it's physics. It doesn't have to be like that. At the end of the day, this is a job. And yes, you have to be happy at your job. And if you like your job, that's great, but it's a job. And it doesn't have to be your whole life, and it doesn't have to revolve around it. You're allowed to have hobbies outside of it. You're allowed to have friends, and you are allowed to like different things, and that's totally fine. I mean, finding like the balance of what works best for you and putting boundaries early on, I think that's what's best. And because putting boundaries early on would reflect on the opportunities that you have later and the kind of people that you work with and the kind of workplace that you're in. So we'll definitely like say that, just keep an open mind, but also set your boundaries.
Thank you all so much. And Karen, especially that word boundaries came up yesterday in the physicians panel, and I think it's really important. So I think sometimes we start to mesh everything together, like Emily was discussing about, turning off your laptop and, really looking outside of your work sometimes. And I know I struggle with that too, but hearing that word boundaries, I think is so key. But thank you all so much again for participating and sharing your journeys professionally and personally. Also, I want to highlight again what Lauren said in terms of failure. It's a kind of failure. You can't fail. It's just, moving on, experiencing. It's all transformative to the end goal. Your presence here will help guide so many students into a successful STEM career. I just want to remind everyone that the full bios are on our website, and we will be putting their social medias and also emails there as well. Hopefully some of you can join the Discord. Emily and Lauren are already there, but I know there's just so many more things we could discuss today. Please note that a recording of this webinar will also be on YouTube and the Discord soon. I look forward to interacting with all of you in STEM Potential and setting up additional events for our community. We will now take a 15-minute break before we start the med student panel. So I hope you all stick around. And thank you again to Karen, Florian, Lauren, and Emily for taking the time out of your Sunday. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.